Hello, welcome to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here to talk about Marvel Crisis Protocol.
The name's Cable. Remember it.
Hello, welcome back to Cable's Conquests. I'm your host, Archie Cable, and we're here for the Mutant Weekender, Part 2, the first of our game weekend, and of course, I'm joined by Curtis Hodgson. Curtis, how are you doing?
Hi Archie, I'm doing really well, thank you. I'm nice and rested after what was a mad weekend at Darksphere for the Mutant Weekender. I had time to sort of digest it all, and it was a fantastic weekend. But yeah, can't wait to get stuck into what we did.
Yeah, so it's a few weeks on from the Weekender because Curtis had such a busy time at the Weekender that he decided to take a few weeks holiday.
Yeah, last minute, I was just so pooped on the Monday. We had to jump on a plane.
Yeah, tough life. But we're recording now. Now we've allowed it to settle in, had our thoughts and feelings, and we can kind of talk about it again. And, well, I've had to remind myself of what happened because it was a wee while ago, but I do know what happened. I've had a look through my notes, so we're ready to go. So first off, today we're going to be covering day one of the weekend. So the Mutant Weekender, if you don't remember, listen to our previous episode. We did a big kind of review show going through our rosters. But to summarize, the Weekender was a 2-day event that happened in London with a huge number of players. So I think it was 80 players in the end. I think there might have been one less, 79 players 79, in the end,
yes.
but, which is pretty remarkable given how many players there were that we only had one end dropout. But on day one, we had normal Swiss. And on day two, we had this pod system, and we'll cover day two in our next episode. So today we're focusing on day one, 4-round Swiss event.
And you'll remember from episode 1 that we are going to go through these in perhaps slightly less detail than we have done in previous episodes or our normal format, because we want to go through both of our experiences, so all 4 of Archie's games as well as all 4 of my games. And hopefully you'll also remember there's a little competition going on between us, who does best after day 1. So what happens, Archie, to the person who does best after day 1?
So the person who does best after day 1 gets the honour of covering day 2 in its entirety in a normal Cable's Conquest review show. So that is what is at stake. I'd argue it's high stakes.
Huge.
For our little in-house competition.
Absolutely. And no spoilers here, but it goes down right to the wire, doesn't it?
Yeah. So just to remind everyone, I was playing my Midnight Suns and Curtis was playing his Charles Xavier X-Men list. So I'm fighting for a second Midnight Suns exclusive episode. And Curtis, you're really fighting for, well, it's sort of a second Charles, but it would be a first exclusively Charles, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. It would finally be spotlight that he deserves, because sadly I didn't have the stomach for it last time and Sam Wilson got a little bit in the way. But no, this time it would all be Charles.
Yeah, so just give me a kind of overview of your thoughts on the event now that you've had a little bit of time to reflect. You've had your holiday, sat on the beach to reflect on the event, especially day 1, I suppose.
So I think as far as gaming events go, this was probably one of the best gaming experiences I've had. And I've done, since the world reopened itself from COVID and I got back into the hobby, I've done lots of events. 2022 was certainly a massive year. Went all over the country, but I do think this is certainly up there with some of those best gaming experiences I've ever had. And that's not just because I had 7 fantastic games over the weekend. This was massive. Not only was the fact that we had nearly 80 players in an event, every game felt like it mattered on day 1. It mattered where your placing was. Every point felt like it mattered because there were so many players. Difference between being in one pod and the next pod could have been just a handful of VPs. And actually, quite funnily, we ended up following the people that we'd previously played because our strength of schedule also mattered because there were so many players. If you were on the same wins and losses, strength of schedule being the first tiebreaker between players could be huge on which pod you end up in. So literally every margin mattered, which was great. But then also, we stayed in a hotel, there was a quiz in the evening, we got food, so much of the community was there, so many people had travelled. It really, really did have this big event, this big sort of con vibe to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was brilliant. What are your thoughts?
There were a remarkable number of prizes as well in that kind of convention style where, yes, everyone was vying for that top spot, that top pod, that top place. But basically, I think at the end of it, everyone came away with some prize, which is just remarkable. So it was a really great kind of a community event that spanned the Friday evening. We had some pickup games on the Friday. In fact, we played probably one of the closest games we've ever played.
I really thought I had it.
Squeak it, pull it out of the bag at the end.
I thought that was going to be like what my whole weekend was going to be. Like, it felt very X-Men to sort of go ahead on points and then run out of steam.
Yeah.
Luckily, it didn't all my games didn't turn out like that, but it was an absolute ripper that we had on that Friday night to set the weekend off.
17-16, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was insane.
It was fantastic.
Went to the pub on the Friday, had a few drinks on the Friday evening. Not too many. We wanted to stay fresh for the Saturday. Yeah, and then, like you say, the quiz in the evening. We again went out to the pub with a bunch of people, stuck around. It was great. And great to hang out with so many people. And, big shout out to the organisers, Norbert and Jamie. Like, they did an incredible job. It's not an easy event to put on, I don't think. And I think, they did really well. And, Norbert bringing people from all over Europe. I can't remember how many countries were represented, but there was an enormous amount,
I'm not going to guess. It was over 10, wasn't it? But there were players from everywhere. And it was, it's the first time I've experienced that at an event, really. And I even got to play a few people of different nationalities as well. So that was fantastic.
And what's great is, setting up we'll be on a team for WTC later in the year. I imagine there'll be a lot of those players that will be there. So there'll be familiar faces from kind of all over the place, which is just a brilliant kind of... I think actually this is something that I've found coming into MCP away from other game systems that is unique about this game system, is that people really do travel and there's quite an international community, and that was on full show at this event.
Definitely. They are truly dedicated, and it only makes that gaming experience much, much richer. You get such a plurality of experiences, of ideas, of how to play and which models to bring to the table. And also then the hobby on show was actually quite impressive as well, coming from all over Europe.
I was going to say, actually, there was a painting competition, and in our preview episode, we talked a lot about our display boards that both of us made for the event. And we were thinking, there'll just be two of us. But actually, there were a fair few in the end. I think there were four display boards and a lot of amazing hobby on show. Yeah. We did pretty well with our prizes in the painting competition. I came third and you came second, but we were pipped by... I know. We were both pipped by Chloe's amazing Vietnam Shield-inspired display board, which, if you haven't checked it out, check it out on Facebook. It's pretty amazing.
It was unbelievable, and we'll be getting onto the game soon, but she was my first round opponent, and it was such a pleasure to play against.
Yeah.
All the models have been converted in this sort of Vietnam soldier style. The level of conversion that's gone into them and the level of details is insane. It's, she's not just put helmets on them. She's not just painted them a different color. There is so much work. It was great to get her sort of thoughts and advice and tips on how she does it. I'm certainly going to be, sliding into her DMs for some more advice. I've got a few ideas on my own, having seen hers. It's, green stuff work on things like adding cloaks, adding jackets and stuff. Something I've always been too scared to give it a go.
Yeah.
But she had some really, really great tips for making sort of the green stuff sort of work longer, to reduce things like thumbprints in it as well. So, and she seems, she was on the Across the Bifrost in their review of the event. And she seems so open to sort of talking to people and giving people advice. So if anyone else out there has got similar inspiration from what they've seen her do, then do drop her a message.
No, it was great, and it was great to see, because that's one of the big things that we've been talking about, is the hobby side of it. And actually, there's another weekender in May, and I've already seen a lot of people on Discord chatting about making display boards for it. So that's awesome.
Been one of my favourite outcomes of this event is people are setting themselves up for May to lean into the hobby, which is exactly what we wanted to achieve. Even if the games didn't go our way, or if, we didn't come away with the prizes ourselves, to try and inspire other people to do so. I feel like we did a lot of work there. I feel like what we brought to the table in terms of hobby hopefully captured people's imagination, hopefully captured people's inspirations, made them feel like, well, if they can do it, we can do it as well. And in May we'll see 3 times as many display boards.
Yeah, I'd like to think so. I don't know how much I will do for the May one. I'd like to do something, but whether it's the same extent as I have done this time might maybe not. But
I said after I finished the X Mansion that I'm not doing that again for a long, long time. But actually listening to Chloe on Across the Bifrost has inspired me to want to do something. I don't think I'm going to go to as much effort, but I've got a few ideas which the listeners will find out in the coming months as we creep towards May.
Good. Well, this weekend was really about the competitive side, so why don't we pause there and go into round one of games?
Fantastic.
My name's Chloe, I'm playing Shield. Fantastic, thank you very much for coming on to Cable's Conquest, Chloe. What are you most looking forward to about this weekend?
I'll be honest, it's the idea of being able to hit the pods, to be honest, is a really nice idea. So it means you're not ruined by having a first bad game or anything like that. You get to have a rethink about your roster before you actually play. And then you also know that no matter how poorly you might do on the first day, you can just do your best on the second day. And if you get the best of the bottom, fantastic, that's what I'm here for.
Oh, fantastic. I completely agree. Thank you very much.
So we've had our Friday night pickup games. We are into round one, and I should just say so. As I said, I'm playing Midnight Suns. Curtis is playing X-Men. We won't go into details of the roster in this episode because we went into them in a lot of detail in the previous one. So check that episode out before you listen on any further to hear about our rosters if you want to listen to our thoughts on roster building. And this episode, we're putting our thoughts into practice. So, kicking us off, Curtis, round one, what happened?
So, round one, the pairings go up, and like I've already alluded to, I'm up against Chloe Clegg, with her fantastically converted Shield roster.
Yeah, beautiful armies on display in that one.
Yeah.
Beautiful rosters on display.
This game was an absolute joy to play because of it. And one thing I did want to mention on this, sometimes when people do lots of work their models or they paint them in such a unifying scheme, it might distract from knowing which actual model is which and who's doing what. This really wasn't the case playing this game. I knew exactly who everyone was because the real character that Chloe had converted into those models, not just to bring those details of the theme, the Vietnam theme, but also, she was leaning on little inspirations and little Easter eggs from those characters themselves. So you knew exactly who you're up against. We roll some dice, and Chloe gets priority, and she goes with her secures, and we get superpowered scoundrels. And then from my extracts, we get scrolls. So I don't think there's any choice here. It's 20 threat.
A nice one to start. Nice big one to start.
Yes, but there's a lot of points on the table. Perhaps I hadn't really thought or had much practice on superpowered scoundrels. Normally it's something that point scoring teams enjoy, but with Professor X being sort of a bit of a hybrid between point scoring X-Men and something a bit more attrition-y, I was a little bit nervous. However, speaking to you the day before after our game, your advice was, in these games where there are lots of points on the table, just think about having models who can be on points, who can be scoring. So I was like, right, okay, let's go 6 wide here, because there's going to be punching, there's going to be backwards and forwards. There's 5 secures on the table. This gives me a little bit of flexibility. So I go with Professor X, of course, Nightcrawler, Beast, often my core, Storm, Rogue, and then last but not least Toad. And then Chloe has gone Nick Fury, Namor, Invincible Iron Man. So at this point I'm like, what leadership is she going for? She's got all great leaders on the table. She goes with Steve, the first Avenger.
Oh, nice.
And Hawkeye rounds out her 20 threats.
Cool.
But she does go with Nick Fury's leadership.
Nice. Okay.
And I think it was absolutely the right call. I don't know whether she had ideas about X-Men and stuff, but obviously with X-Men quite often getting up on points early, being 1 or 2 points behind, as soon as you get a model days, obviously Nick Fury can then gain that point back. And in this game, that came in clutch, and Chloe actually benefited from it twice.
Yeah, that's big.
Spoilers, we go into the final round at 13 points each. And given the fact that she's benefited from that leadership twice, that's multiple times I've thought, I've eked ahead. And she's been able to use the leadership. And actually, it's something that I think I'm doing well. Taking her models out is just allowing her to stay in the game. I don't want to go into sort of too much detail in sort of the ins and outs of this game. But Chloe with priority, she's very aggressive. And she ends up taking 3 of the scrolls. She takes her near one and one of the side ones with Nick Fury. Classic Nick Fury opening move. Nightcrawler for me then takes the other side one. And Chloe uses Steve to go and take my nearest scroll. And then he gets pushed.
Right.
And I'm like, great opportunity for me to sort of take Steve out, take his scroll, close the character down, and we're still parity on scrolls. Steve doesn't go down, and this is not the defensive Steve. This is the Steve that doesn't count blanks. He can add dice.
The
He's
shield
got the power.
Steve.
Yeah, the shield Steve. So he's, I'm expecting and actually he's moved in such a way that I think I can use either Storm or Beast to throw him right into range 2 of Rogue. So Rogue, turn 1, can Mutant Absorption him to make sure he's got no power to hopefully not be able to put up his defenses, and then punch him twice. And hopefully if I've done a bit of damage also with the Mutant Absorption, I'm thinking that should be enough. Not turn 1, it's not. And Stubborn Steve, I think, sort of sticks around, and I'm a bit worried that this is sort of going to define the game. But everything else is going on. Everyone else is on points. I think we're largely on parity. I think I might have one more secure, which is balancing out the one fewer extract. And I think I am right in saying that the level of resources I need to put into Steve might define this game. And luckily, turn 2, he goes down quite easily. But Namor comes in, mops up, picks up his scroll.
Yeah.
But actually, Chloe is using Namor as a scalpel. Well, not quite a scalpel because he's not coming in and he's not going out. He's going in and he's doing the business, but he's going early. And this allows me, with my 6 wide, to sort of react to that. Unfortunately, Namor is only size 2. So Namor, unfortunately, spends a lot of this game being thrown by both Beast and Storm.
Yeah, nice.
And also, a bit of a story of Professor X's tournament. He loved getting just 1 damage on his mental suggestion. It was always, particularly on Namor, it was always just 1. So he was getting moved,
that's all you need.
Thrown. Luckily, so with Steve going down, and then I think Steve then gets KO'd in round 3 by Rogue.
Yeah, okay.
And Namor getting pushed around and eventually dazed, Rogue is then able to take the extract and essentially go out and score points. Controlling those 2 characters and keeping them off of secures and sort of keeping them in the middle of the table is allowing then my other sort of 3 or 4 characters to try and outcompete. And in some instances, out attrition. I get very, very fortunate with a spike from Nightcrawler, which takes Iron Man out in round 2. Iron Man does the same back to Nightcrawler in round 3. But there's a lot of this toing and throwing. And yet, by the final round, we are 13 apiece. And the game ends 17-16. And it's literally, it's
2?
It's to me. So I managed to squeak the win by one point. It's a really, really tight game. I felt like it was a really, really good matchup. It was a fully affiliated Shield. It was sort of that 6 wide X-Men on with lots and lots of points available. I felt like between Storm and Beast, most of their game was spent move, throw. And they were sort of rotating around the table. And whether this was doing it to the grunts to throw them into someone else as a damage piece, or it was to throw a character, often then into the grunts to try and kill the grunts, but then get them off the point. Charles stayed largely in the middle of the table, so all my characters were able to get their re-rolls.
Yeah.
Because Steve came to Rogue, she got really good action economy, and I was very fortunate that even though he took a long time to daze first time, he went down very quickly second time. So once I had the model advantage, then
he's 6'5", isn't he?
Yes, and even though he had all the power in the world to up his dice, obviously he's not counting blanks. I think I managed to, Rogue was able to punch, Mutant Absorption, throw terrain into him, and it was just enough to deal with him.
Yeah.
I was very pleased with sort of the level of control that I had from Storm, Beast, and Professor X, which meant that the others could either go around punching people or scoring points. And that's what Toad and Nightcrawler did. So, yeah.
Well, what a great start to the weekend. A nail-biter, but a win.
Yeah, I was very, very pleased.
1-0 at the end of round 1.
It's set up for hopefully will be a good day, maybe a challenging second round. How about you, Archie? Who did you see opposite you at the end of round 1?
So my round 1, I drew Nick Cork.
Oof!
Which is a pretty tough round 1. One of the favourites going into the tournament, I'd argue. A top player. I've seen him play Hellfire Club a lot, but actually today he was playing Criminal Syndicate.
Which Criminal Syndicate was it?
Kingpin Criminal Syndicate.
Some would say a poor man's Hellfire.
So, well, yes. I think Kingpin Criminals is a fantastic roster and actually saw a bit of a resurgence at the Weekender. It kind of died down a little bit for a while with I think all the Thor 2s and the Thanoses running about. But actually it saw a resurgence, I think, at this weekend. So we play on Infinity Formula, a Legacy Virus. Nick gets to choose, so I win priority, and he goes with 19. So we've also got a pretty big, beefy game to start off with. So I go with Blade, Voodoo, Iron Fist, Nkantu the Living Mummy, and Werewolf by Night. So my thinking with Voodoo is that I very rarely play him, but this is the kind of time he comes with the mystics and just slowing the points down by forcing people to drop extracts. I feel like I need that against Kingpin and his criminals who can run away with games early. Nick takes Kingpin, Rhino and Bullseye, and then he splashes Namor and Shang-Chi. So a pretty interesting Kingpin criminals, not what I was expecting, not the normal potatoes, but 3 sources of stagger.
Wow.
Which is pretty nasty.
Yeah.
So Kingpin, Namor, and Shang-Chi can all stagger quite easily.
Yeah. That's really tough because you're trying to like get them off points. Often that requires, a move and then an attack if your displacement is on your attack or moving a superpower.
Yeah.
If you're being staggered, you can't generate as much power because you don't have as many actions, or you just don't have the actions to do what you need to do.
Yeah, so this is partly why I took Voodoo and Nkantu, because they are 2 of my sources of displacement. So Voodoo has the double hit trigger on his builder that can throw, and Nkantu has a push on his builder as well.
Right.
So that was my thinking with those 2 characters. Round 1, not a huge amount happens. I think I'm up on extracts and he's up on secures, or I don't think he's up on secures, but I think he basically dives my back one with Namor. Round 2's the big round, where I think I made a mistake early in the round where I didn't activate Werewolf by Night and go after Namor. I went with Nkantu instead against Shang-Chi. He does his range for Mystic into Shang-Chi. Doesn't do very much, so ends up not being a great activation. And then Namor one-shots Werewolf by Night, which was pretty tough because Werewolf by Night was holding one of my extracts. The round continues. I'm folding at this point. The attrition on this list was really surprising. So Shang-Chi and Namor were doing work. And at one point, Nick had all the points. And I was thinking, oh dear, this is going to be difficult. But I have a play up my sleeve to finish the round. So he's got a bullseye on a point. So Dr. Voodoo goes. The idea is that he punches Bullseye, ideally getting the trigger to throw him off, or maybe doing enough damage just to daze him, because Bullseye doesn't like Mystic. And then he'd also be able to gain enough power to force Namor, who at this stage has 2 extracts, to drop those extracts. And then, if all goes to plan, I can pick up those extracts and potentially even bump onto the point. So this is my grand plan. Voodoo walks up, blanks out against Bullseye.
Oh, no.
It's an absolute disaster because I don't get any wilds, I don't get any skulls, and I don't get any damage. So Voodoo gains no power, meaning he doesn't have the power to force Namor to drop the objectives. That was huge because it basically meant that Nick scored 6 points that round.
Wow.
And so it was 10-3 to Nick at the end of round 2. That was the big moment of the game, and I tried to bring it back with a siege next turn. I do have a decent enough siege where I daze Namor, but ultimately it's not enough, and the Kingpin Crims just roll through me, and it ends up being a bit of a blowout, and it's 20 points to 6 to Nick by the end of the game. So a loss to start the round, a pretty devastating loss.
Pretty heavy.
Pretty convincing.
Do you feel that it was a rough matchup for you? Having one priority going with your secures, Infinity Formula is normally a fantastic secure for you, but it's also a fantastic one for Kingpin.
Yeah.
It gets all of their tech online, and they love sitting on those 4 points that are relatively spaced out.
Yeah.
Was that an uphill struggle?
Yeah, I think going into the game, and we talked about this after the game, Infinity is like the best secure for Kingpin because they can just sit on points and gain power. And like you say, the points are spread out. So it was an uphill battle. But that's why I brought someone like Voodoo. And I do think he could have made the difference in the game, but his dice just didn't show up.
Yeah. Sounds like he spiked the wrong way, which is, it's unlikely, but it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah. If that had gone the other way and I'd managed to do everything that I wanted to do, Voodoo would have scored me 3 VPs that round. And I think it would have ended the round at kind of almost evens, with me having priority and Siege of Darkness turn. So that was the big play that didn't quite go to plan. But the problem was I was relying on a big play from Voodoo, because basically the right flank crumbled to Shang-Chi. So yeah, I think it was a tough matchup, and then just a couple of moments, Namor one-shotting Werewolf by Night. In fact, Voodoo had about 3 attacks into Bullseye over the course of the game, and Bullseye ended the game healthy. So Voodoo had an absolute shocker of a game.
Just an absolute castle of a 2-threat there. It's just...
Yeah. He's got 2 Mystic Defense.
Yeah, that's nuts. With 4 health as well, so,
So, yeah, well, I'm going to spoil it. Voodoo didn't come out for the rest of the weekend.
Well, you've famously got a terrible record with Voodoo, and a much better record with Black Panther Chosen of Bast, haven't you?
Yes.
If we're looking at comparisons. So fingers crossed, Black Panther makes an appearance in your next 3 games.
Yeah, and he sorts me out.
He sorts you right out. Excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like an absolutely devastating game. I mean, and Nick goes on, doesn't he, to qualify for the top pod? So
yes,
it's not like it was always going to be a tough game, regardless of and if things don't go your way, it gets even tougher.
Yeah.
So should we go into round 2, and fingers crossed, it turns your way more.
Let's do it.
Hi, I'm David. I'm playing Apocalypse this weekend.
Hi, David. Welcome to Cable's Conquest. So you're playing Apocalypse.
Yep.
Who is going to be your MVP this weekend in the roster?
Other than Apocalypse?
Other than Apocalypse himself.
Oh, then I'd probably go Honey Badger.
Honey Badger?
Yeah, super fave.
Oh, why so?
Always play her as death, chuck her in people's faces. If they can't avoid her, they're going to be giving you some horseman tokens. And then later on in the game, you just make her go pop and give Apocalypse another go.
Fantastic.
So we've had slightly different first game experiences. You won a nail biter to go 1-0, and I lost heavily to go 0-1. So in terms of our in-house competition, you're up at this stage, but there's a long way to go. Tell me about your round 2.
So yeah, my round 2. So round 2 is always a strange one, isn't it? Because round 1 is completely random, but round 2, with Swiss, you're suddenly facing someone else who's always won. That could be someone else like myself who was in a real nail biter and just squeaked it, or it could be someone who smashed their opponents. I've got a feeling that David, who I faced in round 2, probably smashed his opponents. David is from France. It's really, really great. Game 2 already. I'm facing one of our international competitors. He's known on Longshanks as Ikari, so some people might be familiar with him. And he is running a criminal syndicate. And quite excitingly, MODOK, Scientist Supreme.
Ah, nice.
Which is really cool. It's not something I've ever thought about or been interested in, but that all changes after this game. This is one of those wargaming moments where I come away from the table a little bit inspired.
In fact, sorry, you were so inspired, I think you bought him on the day.
Yeah, I literally bought him that day, yeah. There was one on the shelf at Darksphere. I was like, I'm having that. Yeah. Honestly, this game is now living rent-free in my head of what David was able to do. But so, yeah, David wins priority, and we draw Deadly Meteors and Skrulls. So Deadly Meteors, I'm thinking, out of here, it's a pay to flip. God, I've gotten away with this. But it's quite a narrow pay to flip, isn't it? It's still very, very fighty.
Yeah.
And Skrulls, of course, it's an interesting one. I really like it. But it can push you around the table and therefore punish you as well. So, yeah, an interesting crisis combination. I go with 20 Threat, and the team that I bring along is Professor X. Beast and Storm, they did so much good work for me in round 1. I really, really like their displacement. And the idea that they could throw someone off a point and then flip it felt really strong here, particularly Storm with her 4 energy. I know Beast isn't as strong here, but I don't mind 2 dice if I can throw the opponent off. And then I bring Cable and Juggernaut.
Ooh, the double 5.
Yeah, we talked that I will bring one or the other to most games, and Nightcrawler is like a dead cert. But in this game, because I didn't have priority, so I knew I wasn't going to be picking up that first extract, I felt like it was going to be quite fighty. I wanted Cable for the fightiness, but still, because there was 4 extracts here, and for his resilience, I wanted Juggernaut as well, and I felt that 20 Threat was my opportunity to do that. So I brought both 5s.
Yeah, fair enough.
And David brought MODOK, new Loki 2. Is he God of Lies or something? Prince of Lies?
Prince of Lies, yeah.
Yeah. Bullseye, Mysterio, that's his Criminal's Core. And then Thor 2, Hero of Midgard. So,
oh, jeez.
He's brought a bit of a beat stick here. David's here to win. So
I do love the MODOK Loki Mysterio combo. That is fun.
This is what I found quite inspiring. David's roster was essentially designed to be putting out guaranteed chip damage throughout the game.
Mm.
And actually, you think, oh, Thortu's just been thrown in there because he's amazing and he's got the threat for it. And he's just a massive beat stick. But actually, his builder really plays into this game plan as well. You start
Yep.
rolling those wilds on here. Suddenly, you've got that chip damage from that lightning arc. You've got tricks and traps from Mysterio doing sort of chip damage.
And the push, yeah.
You've got Loki doing oh, what a pity. You've got Bullseye then. Once everyone's been chip damaged down to 1 or 2 health left, Bullseye can then just pick them all off.
Yep.
And as you can tell, this is how the game went. But it's not how the game started. I took a 5-2 lead
Wow.
at the end of round 1. I ended up having 3 scrolls. So he goes with Mysterio straight away, picks up his scroll, and gets pushed. And I'm thinking, great,
Happy days.
let's shoot Mysterio. He's not a good round 1 target though, isn't he? And he did take a fair amount of resources.
Yeah.
But he goes down, and I managed to take his scroll, and then I think Storm goes out and picks one up on the side. Or maybe it's the other way around. It doesn't really matter.
Did you daze Mysterio round 1?
So I dazed Mysterio round 1.
Because slight tangent, but with Modoc's leadership, he can be quite difficult because he rolls 5 defense dice, and if he rolls a wild, he gets another success.
Yeah.
So actually, yeah, that's quite a difficult. It's quite a sneaky play unless you have someone who can spend 2 power to get through his defenses early.
He's quite tanky with that opening grab because of the 5 dice, and with the leadership, he's quite likely to roll the wild on the 5 dice. I think.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what it was. He takes it, and I daze him, take his. I take my own nearby with Juggernaut, I think, actually. And then Beast takes the far one and tries to flip the point in a classic first-class fashion. Great thing about Meteors is that I think you can be in range of both the side scroll and the point, your home point on a medium base. But David's attrition was just too good. So I go in all happy days with this 5-2 lead. And just to give you a board state of what happened then at the end of the game, the only character I had left was Beast, and what ended the game essentially was him getting dazed. And the only thing that stopped me being tabled was that he was on his healthy side, and when he got dazed. And actually what it was that dazed him, he was on 1 health at the start of round 5. I then try and I move, I flip a point, and I roll a skull, and I kill myself.
With his 2 energy defense as well.
Yeah, with his 2 energy defense. I don't even think I took the point, but it didn't matter. David was able to essentially then sweep up the board. But yeah,
brutal. And
he collected all the points in that final round, which really helped him run away with it. During the game, I did manage to KO Mysterio, which felt really great. As I was talking, that sort of like tricks and traps plan, that bubble, it really worked.
But how much did he do before that? That's always the thing with Mysterio. He's only a 3 threat.
He lived on 1 on his unhealthy side for so long because I wasn't able to do him in 1 attack or 2 attacks. He can then, in his own activation or with tricks and traps, and I've given him so much power from round 1, all of that is online and he's moving away. Yeah, he always had an ability to sort of get out and dodge, and then because of stealth as well. And I didn't really have range 3 attacks, so I had to be nearby him. I had to be getting into that range 3, which then allowed him to tricks and traps. Throughout the whole game, I felt like I dealt with Thor 2 quite well. He is the boogeyman of this game right now, but Juggernaut picking up that central scroll was really, really stubborn. He was using Thor 2 to try and deal with him, but I do know who I am him away, which felt like a stagger. I know he's got the push, but it did feel like a stagger because he had to sort of move back in. But with Loki there with the go forth, is it?
Yeah.
That really makes the long move not look so good because he can then sort of go forth him back up and then he pounces or moves or whatever.
Yeah.
So overall in the game, I felt like I dealt with Thor, but ultimately it was the resources that I had in dealing with Thor, not to even daze him or KO him, but just deal with him and minimize his action efficiency, and then to try and KO Mysterio meant that the likes of MODOK, Loki, and Bullseye didn't even really need to do that much work, but he was there just in case they were able to put out their attacks.
He was there ready to take out Beast in case he
didn't roll his skull.
Didn't roll the skull on the flip.
What a Pity was probably one of the most savage part of it, because with Professor X and with Cable, I had lots of rerolls, so I was like chasing high damage amounts, but often I was because I was rolling so many dice, I was quite often getting skulls, and Loki was there to sort of make me pay for it. The MODOK leadership as well allowed him to just convert that extra damage. So they were able to sit on the points, or didn't even need to hold the scrolls, but just sit on the meteors and just converting their damage because of the leadership as well was massive. Like I said, the splash damage from Thor's builder was huge. The synergy was just unreal. And Bullseye was not needed in this game, but had I been a little bit more resilient, the result would have been no difference because he would have just finished everyone off. Instead, Bullseye was able to pick up a scroll and essentially sit on a meteor all game.
Yeah, because I think the thing with Bullseye as well is he's still doing a 4-dice attack, so he might spike and do a bunch of damage to you. But it's just the fact that he at least does one.
He at least does one. And that's all David needed. Everyone was doing at least one. And sometimes they did more. There was one turning point. David was really generous to me. He said there was a bit of a turning point where Loki's 5-dice builder, which is Mystic, spiked into Professor X.
6 dice.
Oh, 6 dice, sorry. 6 dice, yes. 6-dice builder going into Professor X's 6-dice defense.
Yeah, okay.
And Professor X was fully healthy, 6 health, and it did 6 damage, and I rolled nothing with mine. Obviously, Professor X can't use the rerolls on himself.
Yeah.
And Professor X in that turn was still to activate.
Yeah, okay.
And given his range, given his ability to move characters around as well, and that was during the middle of the game where the points were a little bit tight, obviously. The game ends 22-13. The big spiral in points was because at the end he just had a table full of characters and I had none.
Yeah.
And he was able to just score every single point. So 7 points in that final round. And I scored nothing.
Nice. Yeah.
But that means before then it was 15-13 going into that final round.
I guess it's the risk with the pay to flip, right, for him, because he can daze all your characters, and then if he doesn't flip them, he's in trouble.
Yeah.
But if you can daze all the characters, then...
Yeah, and he had the redundancy, and that's probably what kept me in the game, actually. I was getting away with my pay to flips, so I did quite well.
Yeah, yeah.
Storm actually ended up killing herself, because this was where the synergy was really good. An area attack, and both Thor and Loki made her pay for that area attack with both What a Pity and Thor's clap back just finished her off. She's only 5 health.
Yeah.
So he doesn't exactly need to spike. I think she'd already taken the damage as well from a meteor or something. So yes, it was
nasty.
It was a real lesson. But honestly, I found it incredibly inspiring. The team that he'd put together, so much thought had gone into it.
Yeah.
The Grand Illusion turn was massive, and I definitely felt it. Yeah. He played it in a fairly defensive way. He played it at the top of round 2. Bubble meant the turn he was able to put a lot of damage on me. I couldn't put damage in return.
Yeah.
Because my crits weren't exploding.
Did he use all according to plan?
He didn't.
Because that feels like that could be very good in that as well. It's like, oh, they've just dazed all my team. Oh, they've still got priority.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think he didn't opt to go with it in the end because he felt that he would probably be going 5 wide each, and he'd probably be able to maintain priority. Whether it was one of his tactics cards, I'm not sure. I've got a feeling he played all of his tactics cards and it wasn't one of them. But cruelty was definitely one of them, and obviously that helps with that damage.
Just the extra attack. Yeah.
Also the one that you gain a load of power when you daze a character that's a criminal card.
No Mercy.
I really like
niche that one, because I mean most of the Criminal Syndicate players I play against are Kingpin, so it's not that worth it. But yeah, that's quite a nice way of just giving yourself a bunch of power.
I've got a feeling MODOK played it, and that just meant that his bodyguard thing was just always online.
Yeah, sure.
Which was massive. So it was a real lesson, and it felt like a really tight game. But really, David was in control as soon as my character started melting.
Yeah. Well played, David, and well done for the inspiration, because that sounds like a really cool list and something I can absolutely get behind.
Yeah, the tricks and traps nature of it, the style of it, absolutely. And you've recently as well got yourself a MODOK as well, so
I've got OG MODOK, but I might proxy him as Scientist Supreme or whatever he's called.
I wonder if a roster like this is in your future. I'm hoping it's certainly in mine. Maybe not with all the pieces the same, but certainly I really liked the leadership. So thanks, David, for that, and thanks for the game.
Yeah.
But what about you, Archie? How did round 2 go? Fingers crossed you can pick yourself back up.
So round 2, I'm playing someone from Ireland. So this is Patrick Long from Cork, I think. I've not met him before, but I was very excited to play against him because he was playing Legion of the Lost, which is something that is very much on my radar with Mephisto.
Oh, of course.
So we play on scrolls like yourself, and we go Infinity Formula again, and I think, without kind of burying the lead too much, I think I play Infinity Formula like 5 or 6 times this weekend. I think Infinity Formula is by far my most played Crisis.
You play it twice on... I've got the long chunks up. You play it twice on day 1.
Yeah.
I don't have the long chunks up for day 2, but...
In fact, I think played it on the Friday night twice as well. So I think I was on like a streak. Anyway, so we play at 20 threats, so a nice big juicy one again.
Oh my goodness, we're getting all our toys on the table this weekend.
I know. And I do get all my toys on the table because I go double 5 like you for this one. So I bring Blade, Ghost Rider, Werewolf by Night, Iron Fist, and then Kraven the Hunter.
I was about to say, this sounds like a perfect roster. This is like what your team's been built around, and then Kraven.
This was the dream. And Patrick takes sorry, in my notes it's saying unaffiliated, but no, it is Mephisto. But he could have gone with Dracula. So Dracula's in here. So it's Mephisto, Dracula, Namor, Bullseye, and Zemo.
Oh.
And the setup for this one was quite interesting because essentially round 1 ended up being, I think, my Ghost Rider, Iron Fist, and Werewolf by Night against his Dracula, Namor, and Mephisto. And then on the other side is our small characters. I had Blade and Kraven against his Bullseye and Zemo. So quite kind of an interesting pair of columns. But I'm able to be quite aggressive early. So with Werewolf by Night, I can bump, move, make an attack, and I got my wild. So I ended up placing on his back Infinity Formula.
Nice.
And just because of the bodies and the way the terrain was, it meant I think I ended up taking it, or the order activation had meant that I could just take it, and Patrick couldn't score it. So I ended up taking a bit of a lead in that one. However, that lead came at the cost of Ghost Rider taking a whole heap of damage, I think, from Dracula. Or Namor, sorry. I think with my Werewolf by Night, I had to do my attack into Mephisto. He then spent his Devil's Deal token to bring Namor forward,
wow, nice.
Who then got to charge into Ghost Rider. And I think I ended up having to use Heroes for Hire round 1 to keep Ghost Rider standing.
Wow. I mean, it's a ballsy play from you to get sort of Werewolf at the table, but you open the door for him to get all his tech off straight away as well.
So my thinking with Mephisto is that he's then used his Devil Deal tokens, so he's now not got any Devil's Deal tokens. So,
and remind me, how does he get them back? Does he just get one a turn?
No, he does it with an attack.
Right, okay.
He does it with an attack that has to deal damage. So basically I'm thinking at the start of round 2, he cannot be bodyguarded unless he goes first with Mephisto, and I had priority, so...
You baited this out.
So I've played Mephisto. I've played with Mephisto, so I kind of, but it does come at the cost of me having to use Heroes for Hire again, round 1, because Ghost Rider's holding an extract.
Sure.
But anyway, without going into too much more detail, essentially I then pivot with Ghost Rider. So I then move to the other side of the board with his long move. So then it's my Werewolf by Night and Iron Fist fighting against his 3 big 5 threats. But importantly, there are 3 extracts on the left-hand side of the table where my Ghost Rider is. So I've basically tried to set it up so that, yeah, he's going to win the right flank in the end, but he's going to take a bit of doing it. And on the left-hand flank, I've got all of the extracts are there. I think he has one of the extracts at this stage. And this is where I feel oh so vindicated, because Kraven goes, and Kraven dazes Bullseye and Zemo in one go.
Wow.
It was disgusting. I think it might have had a siege involved as well, with just one character hitting on that side with the siege, but Kraven did a huge amount of work there.
And is he able to get his token on as well?
Yeah, so he puts his token on, punches someone, moves medium, dazes someone, puts his token on the other one, punches them again, moves medium. Again.
What a turn! What a turn from Kraven.
It was huge. And it ended up meaning that I was 11-5 up at the end of the round because of that pivot. I had all 3 of the scrolls on that left-hand side, and he just had the 1.
That's big. 6-point lead as well. It's big.
Yeah, and then Patrick gets priority the next round, goes on the right-hand side. I can't quite remember what happens on the right-hand side, but it sets Kraven up to do it again. And Kraven KOs Zemo. So in the Kraven versus Zemo battle, Kraven completely does him in. Oh, it was so good because it's a bee, Kraven can basically double tap and move between the bees.
Yeah.
That was it. I won 19-12 and Kraven was the MVP. Oh, he was so good. And I don't know if this is my rose-tinted spectacles because Werewolf by Night and Iron Fist held up their 5 threats admirably. But Kraven really shut down that left-hand side for me. It was huge.
You know what? It's nice to see him do work because I'm really skeptical about how good he is. and you keep trying to play him. I suppose it's moments like this which makes you want to keep putting him on the table. And I suppose the more hate you get and the more he does things like this, the more likely we're
Yeah.
going to see him in the future as well. So,
Yeah.
well played to yourself and well played to Craven.
We said this off mic. I think Craven has these games where he's sensational because he has a really high ceiling, but he also has a really low floor where he just gets dazed, then KO'd.
And there are 3 threats who are more consistent.
Exactly.
And that's why everyone likes to take them. I think you minimize that dice variance, that inconsistency, but it's not the Cable Conquest way.
No, and I would argue in something like Midnight Suns, Craven's consistency increases because he gets his double medium move off more often.
Yeah, and that's enabled by the bump, right?
And that's enabled by the bump. So it does mean that his consistency increases because at least you're getting 2 attacks and you're moving twice.
Yeah.
And at best, you're popping off.
Well played.
So the results have flipped.
They have. It's 1-on-1.
I've won this round, you've lost this round. It's 1-on-1 going into lunchtime.
And it must be relatively tight on the scores because obviously you got battered in round 1. I got battered in round 2. But you've got that's a pretty healthy win there for round 2 for yourself. So yeah, it's looking pretty cagey right now. Should we check out round 3?
Let's do it.
So I'm Rob Duke. I'm playing Inhumans today.
Hi, Rob, and welcome to Cable's Conquest. So you're playing Inhumans, but what is it you're most looking forward to about this weekend?
Well, I haven't been playing that much, so I'm playing Inhumans because it's something that I've played in the past, and it's something I thought maybe I'd be able to get some games in without doing too horribly at. So the thing I was looking forward to is just playing loads of games and getting back in the swing of MCP, which is a great game. Everyone should play it.
Fantastic, and it's going okay so far? How's your record?
Well, not so good because you've just beaten me. But yeah, so 1-2 at the moment. But
1 and 2.
Things will get better.
So yeah, hopefully 2 and 2 and get yourself into a middle pod.
That would be good. That would be good.
Well, thank you very much, Rob.
So we're 1-1 and 1-1.
1-on-1.
At lunch. It's tight.
It is.
This in-house competition is...
Yeah,
it's close.
It's heating up, and it's at lunchtime as well. We have the hobby competition, so
yes. So Curtis has pipped me to second place, and we had a good bit of a scrap outside, But now all eyes are back on the competitive side. So going into round 3, who do you see across the table, and what happens, Curtis?
So round 3, I get one of our London locals in Rob Duck. I'm pretty sure he's London. He's previously been a regular at lots of BMC events. I think he's taken a bit of a break from the game recently. We were talking about it at the start of the game, and so he's come back for the Weekender. He's playing something that he's familiar with. He's playing Inhumans.
Nice.
Which I'm quite pleased to see across the table because I've not seen a lot of Inhumans. I'm not interested in playing Inhumans. Don't really know who they are or what they are, but I do like to play diversity. So pleased to see them at the other side of the table. We roll priority and I win. This is the only time on day 1 that I win priority. And spoilers, priority's great. Why can't I have priority more? In fact, over the 7 games of the weekend, I win priority twice, and they are my 2. I won't spoil it, but yes, priority helps.
I think on the priority thing, I think I won priority almost every game, and I don't like having priority. So we really needed to reverse that. Our fortunes in that regard.
There were moments where I felt my games were won or lost on it. Without spoiling this too much, I felt like the result of this was highly determined by the role of priority. Our rosters were very much geared to do different things, and when we drew Sword Base and Deadly Legacy Virus, the options between 19 and 15 for Rob on a pay to flip were probably less appealing than for me, but he's opted to go for 15, and the reason is his 15 is Black Bolt, Medusa, and Thor 2. So I'm up against my second Thor 2 of the weekend. We said it was going to be a big baddie, and people are plopping him everywhere.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty fighty 15. I don't like 15 normally with my roster. I like to be quite wide. I like to bring my toys. But I've gone with Professor X, Cable, Beast, and then Quicksilver. So again, no Nightcrawler. And I say to Rob after the game that if we'd gone 19 threat, then my roster would have been exactly the same, but with Nightcrawler as the 4 threat difference. So I think at 19 threat, this roster, my team only gets better.
Sure.
And ultimately, with there being 4 pay to flips on the sword base and only 3 characters in Rob's roster, it was definitely an uphill struggle for him. And with characters like Cable who can place, so to move on to points and flip them, Beast who can, either place with his attack or move, throw characters off, and he's just a bit of a pay-to-flip king. And with the sword base being sort of narrow enough that Cable can shoot everyone, Cable can give everyone extra dice. Also, Quicksilver's long move, nuts on this. There's a world in which Quicksilver gets off 3 pay-to-flips in a turn if he's not holding an extract. And fortunately for me, this is largely how the game goes. Not only was I able to sort of pick up more extracts, so turn 1 I was able to go and I intentionally picked up the middle extract. I think I do to me my X-Men play and a bit of a safe play with Beast, and I pick up the middle, move back onto a sword base and flip it. Best thing about sword base, it's automatic if it's not contested. But by going for one of the middle ones, if Rob is going to compete with me on extracts, he has to go for one of the side ones. And if he uses one of his 3 characters to go for one of the side extracts, they're not in the middle flipping points. They're also not in the middle fighting me. So Medusa goes, picks up the side point. Quicksilver goes and picks up the other. I mean, he's got Black Bolt and Thor to try and do some hurt, but there aren't really many targets. Black Bolt moves up, tries to shoot Quicksilver, but Quicksilver, I think he does there's a bit of a whiff there. He maybe does 1 or 2 damage. It's really just giving Quicksilver power for later in the game. Cable is then able to sort of go up, flip a point, and shoot Black Bolt. Thor then, what are his targets? He moves up, flips a point, and then just sort of gets himself into a better position for later in the game. But he's only now got 1 model on a point. I flipped 2, he's flipped 2. Charles, in the fastest wheelchair in the world, just double moves onto that back point. And it's a bit of a risky play because it really exposes Professor X. But it gives me such a huge advantage in round 1. Not only have I got 2 extra, I'm 1 up on the extracts. I'm also 2 up now on the secure. And with sword base, I get the push.
Yeah.
I figure Thor is central enough as it is. So Black Bolt, he hates it being pushed. And so I just push him off the point.
Yeah, nice.
And that points lead sort of grows as the game goes on. And it's a lot more of the same. So Professor X is exposed and Thor smacks into him. Absolutely does the dirty into him. And I think he does daze him. And I think Thor, whether it's this turn or next turn, I think it's actually the following turn then, Thor is in a position where he can take out both Cable and then KO Professor X. Yeah. And he actually spikes too hard into Cable, which means he can't throw him off the attack. Because the hope was you throw Cable then into Professor X with his two physical defense, but he can't throw him. And then similarly, he's left in no man's land. Beast with his extract is just jumping between the 2 sword bases, whichever one Medusa's not at, because Medusa's had to sort of double move into one.
Yeah.
Flip it back, the one that Professor X did. Beast just double moves, throws her off, and flips it back my way.
Yeah.
And Rob
does the old Beast play.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, late in the game as well, Beast really pops off. Beast gets greedy and puts an attack off into Medusa. All I'm looking to do, I think, is to gain the power for the throw, or it's either from a skull or from a damage. And if I get lucky, I get the place as well. But I'm more than happy to then just move and throw. And I do spike and data. So, all's well that ends well. He then picks up the second point and the game finishes 16-5. So it's a tough one for Rob because he just doesn't have the pieces. And when I'm able to sort of run around and dodge, I think Quicksilver does put attacks in this game, but he doesn't really need to. He's happy. Yeah. He moves back in, flips the point that Black Bolt is on. He's just running between points, flips points that Thor had moved Cable off of onto, whereas Cable is continuing to put on some attrition pressure that's relatively equal to the attrition pressure that Rob's putting on because all his pieces are having to move or they're not all together or Medusa's not in range to throw characters, so Cable can do enough.
It's one of those where it highlights some of the weaknesses of these kind of tall teams on pay-to-flips, and you make the bold play to go with Professor X into the Lion's Den, but it gives you that push on sword base, and actually sword base rewards you for getting ahead early. And then you can essentially just with people like Quicksilver, you can just move off points, wait until he's finished all his activations, and then move back onto a point that Rob's not on and flip it back because you've got the wider team, so you get last activation. It's where Thor 2 is a menace, but he can only kind of be in one place.
And once he's gone, he's gone. And if he's not done enough that turn...
Yeah, once he's gone, he's gone.
If he's not done enough that turn, then he's not flipping any more points. He's not picking up any more extracts. In the back of my head throughout all of this game, and it has been actually throughout this whole weekend, shout out to the multiverse they call themselves the Multiverse of Madness podcast.
Yes.
Huggy Bear and Kolar, who were Huggy
Yeah.
Bear was certainly in attendance this weekend.
I think they both were. In fact, I play Huggy Bear day 2.
Fantastic. One of the recent episodes, they talk about good first activations. So models fit into 3 categories: first activations, last activations, and support characters. And in this game, I felt like I'd struck that balance almost perfectly. I had Beast and Quicksilver as ideal last activations.
Yeah.
And it was great because I always had the last activation because I was a character up. If one of them got dazed, hopefully I always had the other one to go and do what they needed to do. Thankfully, they usually both went. I had a great first activation in Cable, who could attack, throw, and he did daze Thor 2, I think, in round 2, and he can just put that pressure on, and then Professor X was my support character, just handing rerolls out and just allowing Cable to do even more. So it was nice to sort of see all that happen and put that into practice.
Yeah, good. Nice. Well, big win.
Yes, very pleased with that one.
Yeah, great. Post lunch, you're now 2-1.
Yep, feeling good for the day. How does your round 3 go, Archie?
So I was a bit disappointed because Midnight Suns were all the rage at this event, and I thought I was being clever taking Midnight Suns, but absolutely not.
Was it like 13 out of 79 players? Was it this?
Maybe not quite. Maybe 11.
11.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it was the second most taken team.
And so I have the mirror match going into round 3.
It was bound to happen once, wasn't it?
It was bound to happen. I kind of, as soon as I saw those stats, I knew what was happening. I'm playing against Tucker, who is, I think he's from Finland.
He is.
Apologies if I get
I've got him on Longshanks. He is from Finland.
Good. Tucker is from Finland. I'll say that more confidently now. Really lovely guy. We had a great game. So we played on Senators and Cosmic Invasion. So quite a lot of points on the board. But it's this weird one where there's like 6 Senators in the middle, and then Cosmic Invasion is like way wide.
Nice.
So
that's really, really tough. Like my mind sort of goes into meltdown working out what my opening plays are, because I just don't know how to get the most efficient use out of it. Because with you only be able to move once as well, turn 2 doesn't always guarantee you can get onto those D points as well.
Exactly. I think I have priority. So the teams are, we have 3 of the same characters. We have Blade, of course. We have Iron Fist, and we have Wong, because of course we have Wong.
Of course, yeah.
And I take my 2 5s again, so we're at 19 threat. I take Ghost Rider and Werewolf, and he takes Nkantu the Living Mummy and Immortal Hulk. So I kind of expected to play against Immortal Hulk, and this was a good test to see whether I was correct in not bringing him along. Because remember, I was umming and ahhing about bringing him.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not going to go into details of my opening plays, but there's a couple of nice things that Midnight Suns in particular can do on Senators. So the first thing I did was I moved Iron Fist up, grabbed like my home middle Senator, and then bumped back onto my back point, because the bump helps you get back. I also gave Ghost Rider a power. I can't remember if someone had been dealt damage or if Wong did it. What Ghost Rider can then do is he can double move, grab a wide Senator, and then he can bump onto the side point. So actually, Midnight Suns, and I mean, we've both got this option. Midnight Suns are quite good at that kind of play on Senators. And I don't have Senators, but I think it's something that actually Midnight Suns can do some work on. One thing I didn't mention was that Immortal Hulk also got pushed by the Cosmic Portal round 1. Because he's got a big base, he can sit on the back portal. He got pushed, but it gave him 2 extra power. So the big opening gambit from Tucker's Immortal Hulk was he double moved. I think he might have used the card or he might have used the bump to get into the middle, and then he lobbed the 1 size 4 piece of terrain at Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider had no power, so no brace. Ghost Rider takes all 5 damage.
Oh, you didn't like it. He's not rolling very many physical dice. That's tough.
No, and that was quite a big opener. And iHulk starts rolling in this game, and I see the power of him. So the next round, I think he dazes Werewolf. I think he's getting his wild trigger. He's able to throw stuff at him, and he's just being an absolute menace. And in doing so, he's able to. So he didn't pick up a Senator round 1. Oh no, sorry, he did pick up a Senator round 1 because that was the Cosmic Portal push allowed him to double move, bump, pick up a Senator, and still throw.
Nice. Had he backstop himself as well? So the push.
No. So I was actually thinking, the push is fine for me, but no, because he could still get really far. The score is starting to go against me. I think I'm down 14-9 at the end of round 3. At the top of round 4, I'm thinking, okay, I have some plays here, but he has priority at this stage. But the big moment in the game is we have a Wong off. and his Wong does a Siege of Darkness into my Wong and one-shots him.
I'd come over to the table and
You
saw
saw
this.
this?
Yeah, my game had finished quite early, and I came over to see how it was going, and it didn't look like it was going so well. I can't believe Siege had taken this long to be played, and for him still to be so, up on points. But if Wong's dice were anything to show for it of how the game had gone, then oh my gosh, it was brutal.
Well, the reason this doesn't sound like a a 2-threat taking out another 2-threat doesn't sound like a big deal, but the reason it is I think his Immortal Hulk had about 3 health left. I'd actually had a shot at KOing him with Ghost Rider's Spender at the end of last round and got 3 health on him, and Ghost Rider had enough power to do this Spender again. So I needed Ghost Rider to survive. Ghost Rider was on his injured side at this stage with enough power to deal with the devil. And his Wong dazing my Wong meant that when I Hulk sieged and inevitably KO'd my Ghost Rider, I couldn't deal with the devil onto Wong, which would have been the thing. Because I think I then had to, at this point, think the game was done, because he then KO'd my Ghost Rider. I sacrificed this onto, I think it was Blade that was left. But his Iron Fist had enough power to Spender. So he then spended Ghost Rider, meaning I had no activations left. I had just got down to, I had Blade, Wong, and Ghost Rider before his siege. But it meant that, I had to KO Blade. Ghost Rider then got activated, and he mopped up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have any activations left. So it was a huge moment, because I think if my Ghost Rider goes, I'm probably still struggling, but I have a very good chance of KOing I-Hulk. And I think I'd taken a couple of maybe one of his characters off at this stage, so it's much more even. But unfortunately, with that series of unfortunate events, the game ends 22-9.
Oh my
It's
goodness.
quite one-sided, because he's not gone with anyone after his siege. So he can literally just walk around and pick everything up and stand on points.
Yeah.
And because there were 10 points on the table, he was able to score 8.
Certainly does make it look a lot worse. Yes, it was quite pivotal. Wong was not expected to go down there, I don't think, or at least not so easily.
Yeah.
And of course, if he's still around when Ghost Rider goes down, you've got a fresh Ghost Rider.
Yeah. And I think Wong was dazed as well, so I would have come back with a healthy Ghost Rider.
Yeah.
If Wong had survived. So yeah, it was a massive moment. I think Tucker might have had my number, because especially if Ghost Rider had failed to take out I-Hulk. But yeah, I think it just meant the score really blew out, and so I was, a bit disappointed. But this is the thing, so I didn't take I-Hulk because he's dicey, but when his dice show up, he is unreal. Like, he just makes a fool out of you, throwing people around, little bowling balls all over the shop. Very strong.
Yeah, definitely. And you've got a team that does really, really well by its action compression and getting out and dodge and stuff. But in Midnight Suns, Immortal Hulk is so mobile with his place, and he's still able to get his action economy off. If he then gets his wild, if he then gets his dice, your characters that are good at sort of jumping in, hitting, running away, the reason they can often do that is because they're giving up something elsewhere, and often that is their survivability, and he just flattens them to the ground. Yeah,
reflecting on this game, I think one of my biggest mistakes was I should have just targeted I-Hulk early, because I think I had a tool in Ghost Rider's Spender to take him out.
Yeah.
And so I think that was my mistake. I tried to avoid him because I thought a D-map I'd be able to escape him, but he was just able to corner me, and when his dice are rolling hot, he was gaining lots of power, so it meant that he had lots of power for Ghost Rider to blow him up. And I had that one shot at the end of round 3. I think I needed to do 6 damage off my 10 dice Spender, and he would have been KO'd because he wouldn't have had any power, because he'd have lost it all from the Spender. So it was a chance, but it was a
dicey chance.
It was a dicey chance, yeah. But yeah, unfortunately in the mirror match, Tucker's Wong was bigger than mine.
Oh wow! It sounds like a really rough deal at the end of it. The way that siege went down was pretty devastating, and it pips Professor X back into the lead as well. So
yeah, you're 2-1, I'm 1-2, but it's all to play for going into the final round.
Of course, Professor X can still slip up, and Blade can still find something in him to snatch that last win.
But I do know going into this one that I need a win to keep my hopes alive.
Yep, absolutely. Let's check you out.
My name is Tuukka Kallas and I play Midnight Suns.
Hey, welcome to Cables Conquest. So we've just played. What was the moment of the game?
Well, we have epic Wong off. I was trying a couple turns to kill your wrong Wong with my Wong and even use my Seeds of Darkness to do it. And it was really important because then you couldn't use your Deal with the Devil with your Wong.
Yeah, absolutely. Your Wong was definitely bigger than my Wong in that one. Thanks for being on Cables Conquest. So, Curtis, final round, all to play for, not just our in-house competition, but places in the pod.
Absolutely. Professor X has a chance here to go 3-1. I'm going into the
Yeah.
final round on day one, 2 wins and a loss. I'm really proud of him, really proud of the team. I think they've been working hard.
You've come a long way since you were your 10-game losing streak when you started with them.
Yeah, they are distant memories. They're just learning experiences in the danger room.
Exactly. So let's hear about it.
So in round 4, I come up against a player who's travelled from Belgium in Nicky Bartels.
Oh, nice.
I met him for the first time at the previous Mutant Weekender. We had a casual game there, which was great fun. So I was really, really pleased to see him again. So glad that he made the journey and see him across the table as well. So he brought a equally as devastating team as he'd brought down last year. And he's brought Black Order that can also pivot to Hydra.
Ooh, nice.
It's very killy. And it's Red Skull, Master of Hydra, so it's particularly killy.
Yeah.
I feel like his plan really is to go Thanos, splashing in Red Skull to do some real damage, maybe throw Corvus in there. His roster's got more Infinity Gems than I've ever seen in a roster before. I think he's almost collected them all.
Yeah, sure.
And unfortunately, this is probably one of the few matchups I really didn't want to lose priority. I really, really wanted to win it here because all his crises are up the middle, super fighty, and I'm just not sure I can go toe-to-toe with him. But I do lose priority, and we draw Demons Downtown and Paranoia Pummels Populace. So the only saving grace here for me, because it's quite fighty, plus the damage, chip damage from Paranoia, I know it's relatively fast scoring, so I'm hoping to lean into that. But also with a 19 threat on the table, I can hopefully bring the pieces to then take advantage of that, the fast scoring nature of Paranoia, and hopefully try and score out in this game.
Yeah.
But I know it's going to be a fight. So I bring along my best fighters in Professor X, Nightcrawler, Cable, Beast, who I didn't realise, but I think he's played every game.
Oh, there you go.
Like I said, he is the James Milner of MCP, just so reliable.
Yeah, he is.
And then final splash in Quicksilver. And what I am trying to do here, I also bring Can I Borrow That? Paranoia.
Okay.
People think Paranoia is a civilian because it's like Paranoia Pummels Populace.
Pummels Populace.
They think it's a person, but it's not. It's an asset, which is why Can I Borrow That feels good in the roster.
Yeah.
Often as well with Charles, you can threaten the 2 middle ones if they pick up whichever one they pick up.
Yeah, sure.
So that's quite cool. So he's in there for that. Nicky then brings along. By the way, he's been playing Black Order all weekend. He's played 3 games of Black Order, but he sees me across the table and he's like, I don't need to do that. And he brings Red Skull, Master of the World, Baron Zemo, the 3 threat, Bob. So that's his Hydra contingent.
Nice.
He then brings Corvus Glaive with the Reality Stone. Probably, with Red Skull, Master of Hydra, the killiest model in the game.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 of them, Zemo as well. This is nuts.
And actually, both Corvus and Red Skull can both count blanks on their attacks.
Yeah, that's all I've got running through my head. His final character then is Rhino.
Oh, he should have put Loki in just because Loki can count blanks. The old Loki.
Oh,
Loki
yeah,
God
the
of
old
Mischief.
Loki. I wonder if he was in his roster. It'd be interesting because just everyone counting blanks, which is pretty nuts. But yeah, I'm quite scared of this. The game largely plays out how you would expect it, but in turn 1, I actually do a bit of attrition myself. And I think Corvus moves up the table to pick up Paranoia. He's not taking my bait. He's not going for the Paranoias that... Oh, yes, he has. He's taken one of the central ones. So my plan is here, right, Cable is going to move up, do a bit of damage into him, maybe get an Incinerate on him, make the damage from Quicksilver far more likely so that I can steal it off of him. Didn't need to steal it. Quicksilver just daisies Corvus.
With his 4 dice.
With his 4 dice. Cable had done most of the work. He'd placed, put an Incinerate on him and taken off half of his health.
Done all Cable stuff.
Done all the Cable stuff. It was probably a mistake going with Cable for that move to set him up because it meant I was essentially playing with 4 Tactics cards because Quicksilver finishes him off and takes that Paranoia.
You never know. A late game, it might be useful.
Yeah, it might be useful for me to have that. And we're in this bit of a maelstrom in the middle, apart from the characters that have gone up to pick up the sides, which I think is Bob and Nightcrawler for me. Everyone else is in sort of the maelstrom in the middle, with there being 2 extracts there plus the demons. But I'm being very nervous, very very cagey. I'm only putting the minimum number of characters on the points, so that only the minimum number of characters get incinerated.
Yeah, because you don't have any incinerate immunities,
No.
do you?
No, I don't, and I know how good at killing his team is, so I don't want them for me to be rolling 1 fewer dice as well. Turns out dazing Corvus was the biggest mistake I could have made. So where I think I'm a point up turn 1, maybe there's 1 point in it. I know by taking out Corvus, it essentially forces Nicky to double move Zemo to be within range 2 of Bob, which means that he sort of feels like he's out of the game just so he can get the extra VP.
Yeah, okay.
Because with Corvus being dazed and his only other extracts being sort of in no man's land. But obviously he's got priority. And Corvus wakes up and dazes. I think he dazes both Cable and Beast.
Yeah, he's got all the power in the world to count his blanks.
Exactly.
He's got the reality gem.
And once he gets going, he gets a flurry as well. So I think once he can count blanks and make that damage just so good, and then he gets his flurry. So he was jumping around, just causing absolute carnage.
Yeah.
It does hand priority to me, but this is really where the game starts to go. He really starts to punch me pretty hard, and then I think Rhino as well is able to sort of move into and then play it onto my back point, and he doesn't care about doing any damage.
Yeah.
He just wants to get onto my back point, and that nicely sets up for Nicky as well in turn 3. I think at the end of turn 3, I can't remember if it's the end of turn 3 or at the end of turn 2. Maybe it's the end of turn 2. My whole team, apart from Quicksilver, is dazed. But Quicksilver lost his extract to Rhino robbing him.
Yeah, sure.
So there's this like massive point swing in either turn 2 or turn 3. I can't remember which. Which, to be fair to me, I picked myself back up. I've got priority and I've got some damage dealers in the likes of Nightcrawler, who's now got a ton of power. Cable, who's got a ton of power to throw what he needs to do. But he's got extracts on everyone but Red Skull. He's probably the model I need to take out, but he's the model I'm going to gain the least from taking out.
Yeah.
And it's this horrible conundrum that Nicky has just set up perfectly. But I do the deed. I managed to take out Red Skull. And in that turn, that momentum from taking out Red Skull means that my characters stay alive a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Meaning that they then get activations to then take out other characters, which is hugely useful because I'm able to score some points. I don't claw it all back, but it means we're in a situation where in what's looking like is going to be the final round, I'm needing dice. I'm definitely needing dice, but I can put myself into a position where I could steal the game. It would only be by 1 point.
Yeah, okay.
I've still got Can I Borrow That in my back pocket.
Yeah.
Nicky now is starting to retreat with his extract holders, but fortunately with, the speed of the likes of Beast and Quicksilver, I'm able to threaten his back point. And that's exactly what I do. I start threatening his back point. I think I managed to daze Zemo and throw Bob around and just sort of take their actions out of the game. But in the final turn, I need to either get my trigger from Quicksilver to move, or I need to do damage to Can I Borrow That into one of his back extract holders. Essentially, if I get the trigger to either move or attack again, either one of those, I think I either get then another chance into another character who's holding an extract, or I can move and threaten Rhino with my last activation. And it's Rhino who is now, having gone from being in my table half, he's now moved right to the back, and he's able to do this by, once he's grabbed Quicksilver's extract, he's jumping off characters by attacking them, plus stampeding, and he's gotten himself way out. He's had to respond to me pushing onto Nicky's back secure, with the characters sort of closer to mine being dazed, but it sort of works in Nicky's favour. And the game does end 17-15.
Ah, almost.
Nicky has like an 8-point round, where in that turn where my whole team is dazed and Quicksilver is thrown and robbed, it's like an 8 points to nil round for him. He scores everything. And for me to be able to bring that back to just a 2-point win, in that final turn as well, Cable is able to place, move, and then shoot Bob. And he dazes Bob, but it's still not enough. It's not like it brings an extra closer to me, and I think that's why Quicksilver's play is important. Either I get Can I Borrow That off onto the person I'm attacking, or I get the move, which allows me to get into range to pick up the extract that Bob has picked up. And if I do that, I think we go 16 all and we go into another round. So it does end up being super, super close in the end, and it ends up being a really fantastic game that just the brutality of Red Skull and Corvus counting blanks just makes them, I just can't really catch up after that.
So did he just not get the dice, Quicksilver?
I think Quicksilver was in a position where he was moved, and he either needed the movement trigger to then move and pick up the extract that Bob picked up, he needed to do a damage to steal, or he needed the attack again trigger, the velocity, to then give himself another chance at all of that.
Yeah, okay.
And I think on 4 dice, I didn't get anything. I just didn't get anything.
Yeah, that's tough. But what is, from going down 8 VPs in one round to be able to claw it back, pretty impressive.
And it was a really fantastic game, and Nicky's team did exactly what Nicky's team needed to do, and he played it really, really well. But I was really, really impressed with the X-Men. They were able to sort of go toe-to-toe with the killing, particularly early doors, and then later in the round. Quicksilver was a huge piece in his mobility, bearing in mind he's been thrown away by Rhino, and then with Speedster plus a move, he's now on the back point, or at least threatening the back point with his range 3 attacks, and he's putting me in a position where I could, sneak the draw to make it go another round, or even win the game. Cable similarly as well, able, his place and his just threat. Since he gets the rerolls at range 3, people play him as like a range 3 model, but he is range 5. So someone like Bob, you don't necessarily need the rerolls against.
Yeah.
So he was a target that could be reached. So that felt really, really good. So no, it was a fantastic game nonetheless, but it was well deserved by Nicky. He played very well.
So you end the day 2-2.
I do.
I mean, you must be pretty pleased with that, especially given that you won your first game. And so often it kind of gets harder. Like with this Swiss, especially with a Swiss of this magnitude, you can kind of either sneak a few like easier games, or it gets really tough early, and there's lots of really good players that are winning games. So as you get to the final rounds, if you're on a positive win-loss, then those rounds are really tough. So well done.
Yeah, I'm really, really pleased. I don't often go more than 2-2 at events. So to go 2-2 with such a big pool of players, with a team that I'm really passionate about, but I know that there are sort of known weaknesses in it, and to see those plans play out was really, really rewarding. And you're right, in a 4-round event with Swiss, round 2 I'm always playing against someone who won, so they're likely to be a good player. And then because then I win my third game, round 4 I'm always playing against someone on 2 wins. So it's it was a tough day, 4 really, really tough games, and I think that's demonstrated by both the 1-point win at the start of the day, the getting absolutely smashed, and then the 2-point loss at the end of the day just shows you that there's it was very, very tight in lots of those games. But ultimately really, really pleased and really, really pleased with my placing. And I think I come 2-2. My final placing on the day is 40th, so bang in the middle.
Bang in the middle.
So if you win your game, it's going to come down to strength of schedule.
Yeah.
Potentially, it's going to come down to VPs. So please put me out of my misery. How did you get on round 4?
So I know I need to win this one to have a chance of placing above you. I didn't, obviously at the start of this game and even towards the end of this game, I didn't know whether you'd won or lost. So I was playing for day 2's podcast, and I come up against Jay Mundo. Ooh. So local to London.
An absolute wild card, because he doesn't play conventional rosters, does he?
He is a wild card, and he has another bit of a wild card. So we draw Cosmic Invasion and Alien Ship. So 17 threat. This is a big game. I know I need to win this, so I bring out my big guns. I bring Blade, I bring Ghost Rider, I bring Iron Fist, I bring Wong, and then my big gun, Black Panther, Chosen of Bast.
Oh, you're there thinking I need a guaranteed win here.
I need a win here. So he gets to the table. And as you say, Jay's a wild card, and he has unaffiliated in his roster, and he almost goes unaffiliated, but he goes Dracula instead.
Next best thing to unaffiliated, isn't it?
So it's essentially unaffiliated with a leadership. So he goes with he does the Dracula thing where he's got bleed on everything. So he's got Dracula, Drax,
nice,
Wolverine, OG Wolverine.
Fantastic. Yep, lots of bleed.
Lizard and Bullseye.
Interesting.
So everyone in that roster can give out bleed.
Of course, because Lizard does it on his spender, right? Bleed and slow.
Lizard spender, yeah. So round 1, there's not a huge amount to write home about. I think we end at 4 and I think it was 4-3 to me with priority. Okay. But round 2 is Black Panther steps up at the top of round 2, and he dazes Drax. So Drax doesn't really like Mystic, and Black Panther's Mystic is pretty tasty. And I think I've done, because Black Panther's got this nice play with Midnight Suns where he can, if he's given a power by Wong, round 1 he can move, he can pounce into the middle, he collides with Drax, and then he does a Mystic attack. So I've done some damage round 1, and then round 2 goes, I have priority, I go with him first, and I daze Drax, but I end up having to use Siege to do it. So it's a very early popping of Siege. But on the other side, I'm able to, like my Ghost Rider and Iron Fist on the right-hand side are able to make attacks with Siege. So not all is lost. It's a reasonable Siege turn. And importantly, I take out Drax and I pinch his extract. But hence my confusion, Drax and Dracula are on the same side, that left-hand side, and they're facing off against Blade and Black Panther, Chosen of Bast. And Black Panther, Chosen of Bast, ends up getting dazed by Dracula, but because of the way that I positioned Black Panther after dazing Drax, I was able to pounce away to the corner, so his Dracula had to chase me, not to the very corner, but to the edge of the board, like right on the edge of the board. His Dracula had to chase me, dazed Black Panther, as I think I would have expected, stole my extract but wasn't on the point. So it meant that Blade is then stood on the point. So on that side, we're kind of even on points on that left-hand side. On the right-hand side, I am able to daze Lizard quite early.
Wow, that's no mean feat.
No, with, it's the combination of the Siege, because I had to double tap, and then just Ghost Rider. You know, his 6 dice energy is pretty tasty. Like, he's doing work. And actually, Ghost Rider is really cool on these particularly, because he can just bounce around and make double taps. Yep. So he was like bouncing around. His bullseye was sat on the back point, and my Ghost Rider was either like zipping up just to contest or like zipping back and just putting the middle one. But yeah, that was a big turn for me, and I end up going up 11-6. Round 3 then goes, and Blade KOs Drax. So Drax is off the table early, so that is great for me. And Black Panther, like an absolute champ, survives against Dracula and then dazes him.
Wow, nice.
I think I do my spender with Black Panther. So I get my trigger. So I basically do a 7 dice into a 5 dice before he can clap back. And that's enough to take him out before he gets the clap back. So it's high risk.
It is high risk. He can punch you back. But I think you're going with the right model there, because yes, you are relying on your trigger. I honestly think that spender is only good if you get the trigger. That trigger is amazing. The fully rerollable builder is excellent. But he can't reroll or anything back into you, can he? He can't modify anything.
No, I think that's a low-key massive thing for Black Panther, and that actually saves him, because when it's Dracula's go, he does his spender into Black Panther, and Black Panther is bleeding, but Black Panther, he doesn't get the rerolls against him, so he doesn't get a great roll. I get a good defense roll, and so Black Panther survives. And I think that is one of the things about Black Panther that I really like, is that he can go up against these reroll bots and he just shuts them down.
And he's got 2 on that side, right? Because Drax is the same. If your opponent's bleeding, he gets the rerolls on his builder. So Black Panther similarly doesn't care. He'll take the bleed.
Yeah. And so on that side, Dracula's dazed. My 2 characters are somehow still alive. I think Blade at this stage has run away, because he's got an asset now. He's got an extract. Sorry, so he's run away. But I'm basically thinking Dracula's probably going to take Black Panther down this turn, but at least I've just held him in this corner, because we're on a D. It's quite far away from everything. But actually, Black Panther does the deed, and I go up 15-8 at the end of the round. So I'm not quite. I think on the right-hand side, he's able to get a bit of a clap back on me and just put me under enough pressure that I can't score out on that side.
Right. But it's a tough position for him to come back from, right? Because the 7 points on the table.
Yeah.
You're 1 point off.
And he needs all 7 to get to 15 all. And actually, he has a very good go at it. I think the final score, I'll spoil it now, I end up winning 16-13.
Oh, wow. So you only collect your 1 point in that final round.
And it's Wong that does
it. Of course. It's out of point, is he?
But no, he's got an extract and he runs away.
Yeah, nice.
But the thing that Jay needed was Iron Fist 1-on-1 against Wolverine, and he needed Wolverine to one-shot Iron Fist had been flipped, but he needed Wolverine to one-shot Iron Fist on his unhealthy side. I'd not attacked Wolverine, who was on his dazed side, so Wolverine's not scoring, which is quite big, and also with Iron Fist counting his blanks against Wolverine, his pierce does nothing.
Oh, of course, and if he's got no extra dice from having no damage on him,
he's
a bit of a limp biscuit.
Yeah, so Iron Fist manages to hold on I think Iron Fist does end up going down, but basically it meant that his action economy with Wolverine was basically the only character that could really chase down Wong, but he needed to take out Iron Fist first. So I managed to hang on, 16-13 win to finish the day against Dracula, who is famously the enemy of Midnight Sun. So it was a good thematic final round.
It's your display board in game.
Yeah, exactly. And all of his thralls with his giving out all his bleeds and nonsense like that. My whole team were bleeding, his whole team were bleeding. Everyone was
fantastic.
It was a really fun final round, and most importantly, Black Panther has retained his 100% win record.
100% win record. And he's helped you get exactly what you needed, which was a big W, put you on 2-2. So that's at the end of round 4, we are both 2-2.
Yeah.
Whew.
So let's pause there and we'll go into our outro and reveal who won our in-house competition, because it's come down to the wire.
Excellent.
I don't mind being wrong, as long as I can correct my mistakes.
Hi, my name is Tom. I'm playing Cabal.
Welcome to Cable's Conquest. So you're playing Cabal, well-known faction. What's your spiciest play that you've managed to do with Cabal?
Well, I've done some spicy plays with Cabal. It's a Red Skull 3 Cabal, honestly. Spiciest play is probably playing Survival on Thanos for 8 power to keep him in the game, because I messed up.
That is glorious. 8 sweet Thanos power. Thank you for being on Cable's Conquest.
So we've come to the end of day 1 of the Mutant Weekender 2025. It's been a long, hard-fought day, and at the end of it, we're nigh inseparable. 2-2. Both of us 2-2. You were just ahead of me all day, but I managed to drag it back, and we got to 2-2 and 2-2.
And I couldn't believe it. We were not only were we 2-2, but we were 1.5 each on strength of schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And we were waiting outside the venue, weren't we? We'd both finished our games, and given that strength of schedule is the first tiebreaker, it really, really mattered what our opponents were doing. And at this point, a lot of our opponents from the day hadn't finished, and their results were slowly coming in. And we were like, I might be ahead, and then a result from one of your previous opponents would come in, and then you would jump ahead, and then I'd be like, oh no, I think all of mine have finished, whatever. And then I would jump back ahead, actually, because someone else had finished their game, and it was all over the place. But since that we did finish on the same strength of schedule, it came down to VP scored. And I don't know if you've been keeping up with keeping score. You probably haven't. But Archie, you finished with 50 VP scored. And I finished with a glorious 60 VP scored. I finished in 40th place, so bang in the middle of the 79 players.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, you finished so close, put in 43rd place. Looking at the long chunks, actually, this is a very tasty sandwich. Between us, in 41st is Darren, from the London scene, and Norbert, the host of the event, sandwich between us. So take that sandwich any day of the week.
But it also, not only was it 40th and 43rd, but it meant that we just missed out on being in the same pod. I think we were like right on the boundary of the pods.
Absolutely. You know what I would have taken? I wish I'd scored 4 fewer VPs. I think if I'd scored 4 fewer VPs, I would have finished in 41st, and we would have been able to have our showdown in the pod.
Yeah.
Because I was the lowest ranked in my pod. I went into Delta, which I think is the 5th pod.
Yeah, 5th.
And you would have been in whatever the 6th pod was, as one of the higher ranked players.
Epsilon,
exactly. So, you know what? Very, very pleased with the X-Men team and Professor X, and very, very pleased to have gotten the Cable's Conquest victory. So, can't wait to talk all about day 2.
Yeah, I'm gutted. I am gutted. I remember, so we were standing outside. I think it was Tucker, my round 3 opponent, was I think the last one of our opponents to play. And so Nick Cork, who I played round 1, went 4-0.
He was carrying your strength of schedule, mate.
He was carrying my strength of schedule. My 2 opponents that I beat ended up going 1-3, and I think that was the same for you. But your 2 opponents ended up going 3-1 each. So the last game came down to Tucker, and I think I saw him later in the day, and I think he lost like right at the end. It was an absolute nail biter. Meant that he went 2-2 as well, which means that the 4-0 and 2-2 balances with your 3-1 and 3-1. So it all came down to absolute barest of margins.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. And it's funny because we're talking about the number of players in this event, weren't we? Before we came in our preview episode, and that you can have the same win losses as another player and be, 1 or 2 pods below them. Tiebreakers are going to be so important here. And actually, one thing that you sort of picked up on was teams that were just able to score high would do very well in this event, because there would be lots of situations like us. So the number of players on 2 and 2 and the same strength of schedule as us are, what is there, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of us. There are 6 of us on 2 and 2 and 1.5, and that goes from 38th place right the way down to yourself in 43rd. So VP scored was huge in that.
Yeah.
So if you're a team that can score, even if you go parity or you can just score big early in your losses, hugely help you to get a much higher placing in your pods.
And I think it's what you and other people who play X-Men say about X-Men is what they often do is they have very good round 1, round 2, and then they fall off a cliff. And that's often when you lose the game, is that late round. But because you have good early rounds, you often get to 10 VPs pretty quickly.
Definitely.
Whereas if you look at my losses, my 2 losses were huge. I was just not able to. I was behind early. I didn't score fast enough early, and then it just kind of spiraled, and I couldn't get back into the game. And actually, it's probably not your wins that make it. It's the losses, and your losses were much closer than mine. And often in those losses, you were up early, whereas I wasn't.
I scored 12 points and 15 points in my losses,
whereas I scored 6 and 9.
Yeah, that sounds like the 10-point difference right there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. The X-Men's first 2 turns, they're often ahead on points, if not at least parity, at which point they've probably reached, given the crisis that they're bringing, 9 or 10 points at that stage. Yeah. And it's usually then when they're all killed, and then I might only get 2 or 3 more points and the opponent wins, or they take that momentum and they go on and win the game. So definitely they were geared up to do well in this event. Yeah.
You've got the Longshanks up, but I would imagine that actually within a bracket, okay, 4-0 maybe less is important, but 3-1, 2-2, and 1-3, probably the teams that did the best were those scoring teams. Because if you're getting the same as a attrition team, you've probably scored more VPs across the day, and that often is the difference.
And it's interesting, the X-Men teams, the player in last place for the event was an X-Men player. So they went 0-4. They scored 61 VPs throughout the event.
Right.
But they lost all 4 of their games. So that just shows you the scoring potential that X-Men have.
Yeah. So they're scoring on average 8 to 9 VPs a game, despite losing everyone, which is actually quite high, really.
Definitely. And then if we go up, the next X-Men player who's 1-3, they similarly score 56 VPs. But then there's a player on 2-2, but they've got a strength of schedule of 0.94. So they're lower ranked, but they're sort of the same sort of win-losses brackets as us. They scored 71 VPs.
Across the 2 days, or just the 1 day?
Just the 1 day, across the 4 games, the X-Men.
Oh, they're both 1 day. Oh, wow. Yeah, okay, that makes a big difference. So, sorry, the person in last place is on average like 12 VPs.
Yes, yeah, sorry, yes.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's that's big. That is big.
It's quite telling, isn't it? Just how many points they're able to score. Whereas there are some players really high up. For instance, there's an Apocalypse player in 31st place. They're on 2-2. They've only scored 38 points in their 4 games.
Yeah. I imagine, I guess, the 4-0, you're scoring at least 16 a game most of the time. So you're getting at least 64 VPs most likely.
And there's a lot of point scorers in there. There's Webs, Criminals, X-Men. They're all in the top 5.
2 X-Men, right, in the top bracket.
2 X-Men, 2 Criminals, and 1 Webs in the top 5.
Yeah, I think it's it was a really interesting event, and obviously we're going to talk about day 2. We are unfortunately going to be talking about day 2 through the lens of Professor X.
Yes.
But actually across the event, what was interesting is actually that these big scary like kaiju pieces that everyone hates playing against and is terrified of are what's always talked about. But actually, when push comes to shove, I do think a lot of the time it's those teams that score well that end up doing the best. You just don't hear about it as much because you're not getting tabled by them.
Yeah, because Thor's not rolling 11 hits off his however many dice he's punching at you. So those feel bad moments are very different in those scoring games. And we really did have the best players in Europe at this event. And it just showed you when the best players are given sort of the crisis teams, this game is still very much a crisis game. And those teams rose to the top. It's quite funny. You look at the second pod, a lot of the players top players, but then they went 3-1. there was a lot more of the kaijus, a lot more of those attrition sides in that second pod, and their
Yeah.
one loss for the day was against the top webs player or the top X-Men player, the top criminals player, and they just couldn't get their attrition going, and ended up getting scored off the table.
Yeah, I think probably the thing isn't this event is unique because it's a 4-round day one, but with a huge number of players. So these like tiebreakers make a massive difference. But the difference is, I think the big kaiju teams, I think, probably have a higher floor in the sense that if you pilot it poorly, you still do well because they roll lots of dice. They roll these big dice pools and they often do the damage. But they also have a slightly lower ceiling. Whereas those kind of more control teams can fall apart if they're played badly, because you put them in spots where they've got like 5 health and they just get one shot by a 5 dice builder. So their floor is much lower, but their ceiling is really high, and in the hands of a good player can be really devastating. And I think that's what I noticed, against Nick Cork in game 1. I didn't say this, but it's the best I've ever seen the Kingpin leadership used. Not to the part where they count as 2, they're 2 potatoes, but the part where you pass the extracts around. That came in huge because I would end up doing a bit of damage to someone. I'd be in a position where I can daze them and then get rid of the extract, and he'd be like, okay, I'll just go with them and pass the extract away to my fully healthy Shang-Chi, and suddenly I'm like, okay, I'm back to square one. And that's the kind of big brain moves where you see that you actually use those kind of plays, which makes the difference with those control pieces.
Those players are looking to rotate, and to rotate effectively in a game of MCP, you need to be thinking about the whole round, not just about those individual activations, because like turn activation sequence matters massively.
Yeah.
As soon as you move one character, that's it, you're done with them, and then they're stuck where they are. You might prefer them on a different point later in the round, or they might be on a position where someone else would have preferred to rotate to. So you need to have a game plan going into those, so it definitely rewards those high skill players.
Yeah. But well done, Curtis.
Thank you very much.
You have pipped me in the in-house comp, but how was your day one generally?
Generally, I was really, really happy with it. I had 4 excellent games against 4 really, really good opponents. I was really, really happy with how the roster played. We'll talk more about it in the next episode, but you could make changes, and I was umming and ahhing about making changes. There were some characters that didn't get played at all today, but I opted not doing so because, actually, again, we'll talk about it later, but you and one of the Londoners, Angus, actually from the Rapid Fire podcast, between the two of you talked me into sticking with my team. But I got a lot of work out of my 3 threats. I thought Beast, Storm, and Quicksilver all had fantastic weekends, playing that objective game. Cable did exactly what he needed to do, and Professor X did at least, if not more, than what he needed. One thing I learned though, gosh, priority is handy, isn't it? And if your roster is not geared up to deal with these high skew lists in their high skew scenario. So what I mean by that is these really, really tall attrition lists that love to punch you. If they win priority and they get their secures, they're maxed. They're min-maxed on to play that. Whereas when you're more of a mid-range team like mine, I really got punished in that scenario. And the best way I could avoid it was by winning priority.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I probably had the opposite experience where I won priority too much. And I think it just shows in MCP, you really need a game plan for both. And it's not just about knowing like your own objectives and being like, okay, this is what I do on my extract when I lose priority. It's about kind of reading what your opponent can do with their round one, because everyone will have a round one, or most people will have a round one play, especially with an event as competitive as this. And so you need to be ready to counter it if you've either won or lost priority, depending which you prefer.
Definitely. But yeah, no, overall very, very good and really pleased. And at this point, I was absolutely buzzing to go into round 2. How about yourself, Archie? How was day 1?
Yeah, it was a great day 1. I think doing this and this kind, I know we have this like competition between us, which obviously upped the ante. But if we were both going into day 2, 2 and 2, we're like, okay, we'll just try and go positive. And that's motivation enough for us, but I think for a lot of people it's not. And so what I think was brilliant about this format is we've gone 2 and 2, but we reset for day 2 because we're both gunning for our pods, and we actually, it's essentially a new event, clean slate, doesn't matter. In fact, I will spoil this, but shout out to Charlie Trendle, who lost all 4. He's a good player, lost all 4 games day 1. you know, we had a drink with him on the Saturday night, and he was like, it's fine, I'm going to go, and I'm just going to really gun for that 3-0 day 2 and bring home that trophy. And it's that kind of like mentality where you could imagine someone like him who's pretty competitive, you'd feel a bit deflated going 0-4, but actually this format really like resets the clock, and it's brilliant because it just means you have that extra oomph of energy, that extra motivation to go and have 3 big games of MCP on the Sunday. So I loved day 1. I love day 2 as well. I really liked the format because of that kind of like extra energy. And to be honest, I love the weekend away. It's always fun to go away, especially good with MCP where you can get a few games in between. And I think also the quiz on the Saturday evening was great fun. Shout out to Jamie for setting that up. You know, going for a few drinks. One thing I would say is I wish there was some slightly nicer restaurants around Darksphere because I definitely ate a bit.
Yeah, same. I was hoping to
poorly
avoid
over the course of the week.
Hoping to avoid the fast food, and yeah, when we were was it about 10 p.m. or 9 p.m. or something, we were having our dinner at Taco Bell. I was like, I failed in this.
Yeah.
But it was an absolute cracker, and I can't wait to tell you all about my day 2 in the next episode.
Yes. So stay tuned for some Charles Xavier madness, I guess, you know. But that is the end of our part 2 of the Mutant Weekender 2025 coverage. Before we close out, Curtis, where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram. I am simple_edge highlights, and you can see not just this roster that I've painted up, but also the display board that I put together on there. It's all up on the Instagram. So please do go and check that out. But also, if you want to pick me up on any of the other socials, on Discord, I'm Curtis, and on Longshanks, if you want to sort of peep on me when I sort of turn up at various events, it's Curtis H. How about yourself, Archie? Where can people find you?
So I'm on all those places. I'm on Instagram at Smeagol's Corner. Yeah, similarly, I've put up a bunch of photos of my display board, so check that out. We will also be at some point having some YouTube videos out about how we built the display boards. That will be coming. I'm also on Longshanks, Archie Cable, my name. And then on Discord, it's just Archie. So yeah, hit us up. Leave us some comments, let us know how you think about the format. This is a slightly different format today where we've both analysed it. It's a rare opportunity where we're both at an event, so we thought we both deserve a moment in the light, and it was a big event. So yeah, let us know how you feel. Also, please do check out our YouTube channel. Our audio whiz Louis works hard on the audio, so shout out to him. Works hard on the YouTube channel, so please do check it out. I think that wraps us up. Thank you very much for coming on again, Curtis. Congratulations again on a Professor X episode forthcoming.
Cheers.
And until next time, everyone, keep up the conquest.
The name's Cable. Remember it.